Today I want to introduce you to a vintage SLR that helps to mitigate the issues one can have with the manual focus camera without it actually being an autofocus camera, and that is the Canon AL-1 QF. Before we dive into my experience with the camera and see what I was able to accomplish with it and where I did it, let's quickly go through the specs. It is a 35mm single lens reflex. The model is the AL-1 QF, origin is Japan. Now the AL-1 QF is the last of the A series SLR Canons released. Following the popular A1, which I also owned in 1976, the AT1 in 1976, the iconic A1 in 1978, the AV1 in 1979, the AE1 program in 1981, and the AL-1 QF was released in 1982. The QF moniker is understood to refer to quick focus, but a little bit more on that later. This is also the last Canon SLR to sport that old Canon logo. Before I even continue with the specs, I'm going to jump forward to an issue you might have encountered if you bought one of these, or if you're currently looking at one. The camera requires 2 AAA batteries to operate. Now that in itself is not an issue. In fact, it's a benefit because these are inexpensive and really easy to find. Except the AL-1 QFs you will find in the market are almost all sold with a broken battery compartment door. The latch and the door are a terrible design, and Canon has really dropped the ball on this, unfortunately. There are a number of videos, in fact, by my calculation, more videos on YouTube discussing this issue than the really cool features of this camera. Now in my copy, if I wiggle open the door, that metal conductor came loose, that little plate, and then if that comes loose, the little latch also falls out. So using a glue gun, I was able to kind of fix it up and get it working, but it's not 100%. If you're good technically, you'll probably get a really good way to jimmy rig it, because this camera cannot work without batteries. Another way to secure it is actually to use this motor drive that fits on the A series cameras, and that helps to secure the little battery door. So that's a trick that I've seen that actually helps as well. On the topic of batteries, it has a battery check button next to the rewind lever there. Now if you press it while looking through the viewfinder, if the batteries are okay, the needle in the right hand side will jump to 1/250th of a second. A quick note on using the camera: if you want to take pictures, even if you have switched on the LAS switches, you have to move the wind lever back about, just wind it about 20 degrees, I would say. That activates the battery. If you leave the winder in the flat position or the closed position, the camera simply won't fire. And here you can see me do it before I take the picture. You switch it on by flicking this SAL switch. S, if I put it on S, that's the self timer. So as you press the self timer, it'll take 10 seconds, and there's a little blinking light. That'll indicate that it's counting down, and there it takes the picture. Then you have the L setting, which is locked. Basically, if you have it in L setting, the camera won't operate, and I leave the camera in that position when I'm not using it. Then we have the A setting. I just call it the normal setting. Now let's quickly discuss this A setting, as this is where you'll be taking most of your pictures, unless you're just taking selfies the whole time. The camera is an aperture priority system, which means that in its automatic modes, the shutter speed is variable and determined by the camera's exposure meter system, while the aperture is prioritized to the lens setting. So if you put it on f8, the camera will take a reading and give you the appropriate shutter speed. If you put the dial on that red A block, you enter full aperture priority mode. It'll deliver a shutter speed ranging from 2 seconds to 1,000th of a second, depending on the aperture you set on the lens. Now, if you wish to shoot full manual setting, you look through the viewfinder, you half press it, and it'll show you what shutter speed you should set. So if I've got it on f5.6 and I half press, it says I need to be 1/15th of a second for a correct exposure. I put it on 1/15th of a second and I take my picture. What's really cool is if the scene is backlit and I press that button while I take the picture, it will compensate by 2 stops. It'll overexpose the image by 2 stops to compensate for the backlighting. The camera's exposure system allows for ISOs of 25 to 1600. The camera does have a hot shoe, and the flash sync speed is 1/60th of a second. The shutter is a cloth focal plane shutter. The mount is the trusty FD Canon mount. And the focus, well, this is really cool. Have a look at the reflex mirror, and I'll do a close-up there. You will notice there's like an intricate pattern on it. And these lines let light through to a sensor in the back of the camera. It is what is called a phase detect system. But basically it uses that phase detect system to determine focus. So what is cool is you have an electronic assisted manual focus system. Now, how this works is in the viewfinder, in the bottom of the viewfinder, in the middle, you will notice 3 lights, 2 red ones and a green one in the middle. The left and right ones will light up if you are focusing in the front or back of the subject, so it's out of focus, and then the green one lights up when the scene is in focus. Now you will notice suddenly the lens changed in here. It is because we were speaking about focus and all that, and the camera would have been sold with this Canon FD, the 1.8 lens, which is a lovely lens. I've done a review of it. You can check it out on my channel. And I've also done a review of this lens, which is also quite awesome. You can check that out on my channel. The construction of this camera, the bottom and top plates is like a polycarbonate aluminium. It's like an aluminium alloy. The body was actually available in a black or a silver finish. Mine is obviously the silver finish. The weight without the lens is 490 grams. Dimensions is 86.5 by 142 by 47.6 millimeter without a lens. And the price is $100 to $200 depending on the condition and if that little thing works. So I'm in a very cold situation right now. It's about 10 degrees Celsius, and there's a little scene out there that I want to shoot with my Canon AL-1, and I've got Kentmere 400 loaded. So there's a scene I've been driving past for a while now, and every time I think, oh shucks, I should have stopped there. And it's rainy and it is moody right now and it's wet, and I think that is a cool shot. I'm not going to be able to shoot it sitting down in my car. I'm going to have to get out and get wet. I guess a 50mm will be fine. I don't want to go too wide and kind of lose a sense of it, but I'm going to take, what do I have here with me? I've got another FD lens with me. Let's see what I bring along. I have a 28mm with me. Alright, so we've got the 28. So a 28 might be a nice focal length to just make the shot a little bit more epic. 50mm. I like the 50mm perspective. The composition in this one I actually do like, and the mist and all that creates nice atmosphere. This frame is fine, but how about a panoramic crop? The only thing is it's 35mm format, so it'll leave a fairly small file. This is a lot more fun than I'd like to admit. When you've got cloudy skies like this, it's easy to underexpose because your light meter generally just sees this white bank and think there's a lot of light available, which it's actually not. So it's wise to overexpose by stop. But at the same time, I don't mind underexposing a little bit because it gives a sense of the trees being almost silhouetted in this misty sort of atmosphere. So in my little rainy day drive around, I have noticed a small little scene. So over there's that nice little scene that I'm going to try and get. I'm also going to try the auto exposure on this Canon AL, see how that goes. Yeah, I'm not crazy about this shot. It doesn't really say anything. It just seems more like a snapshot. Yeah, I'm not crazy about it. It's a bit of a cliche, and I don't know. It just doesn't speak to me. As busy as this is, I really like this composition. I set the camera, I think, to f8 and just let it expose, and it looks great. The film also handles it very nice. This shot as well, I think this was 2.8, but I like the tones that I get from this Pan 400. There is a bit of depth here. This works on some levels. I'm pretty sure that those of you who haven't been to South Africa, or specifically the Western Cape, this is not the type of weather that you picture when you think South Africa. But down here in the southwest part of the country in South Africa, this is winter. I don't often shoot these very minimalist type landscape shots. In this case, I do like it. I think it would work better if you maybe go medium format. There's a bit of grain in this image, so some detail would be great, but at the same time, it's quite nice and atmospheric. So I do like it. I think I like the second frame most. I should have moved closer to the center of the road to get the curve of the road running a little more through the middle and out again. I think with a 28 going that way, I think we could get something nice. I don't know about the 50mm. I think you need a little bit more of a feeling of grandeur, which the 28 will give you. Yeah, I think I prefer the first composition. It's slightly higher. All in all, it's okay shots. I got in my car and drove to the next spot. Now this might look a bit familiar. Just look at that. Water everywhere. Now if you saw the video where I shot the AE1 with Pan F50 Ilford, you would recognize maybe this location. So this is the shot I took now on the day. And then this is the frame I took with Pan F, and I prefer the Pan F shot. Go and check out that video. Yeah, shooting these handheld, just, the whole image was blurred, which didn't work. But here I rested the camera on that little wall, and the image is sharp, except for obviously the motion blur I wanted, but not a great composition. Unless, I had some detail in the sky, that could have worked. But I think for the day, the conditions, the composition could have been a bit more tighter on the water. So I opened up the aperture a bit so I could get a faster shutter speed and freeze a bit of the motion. But it does need motion blur, I think, in the water. Wait. Love it. There's a tree that I saw earlier on that I thought would look nice if I was able to isolate it against the background. So I think I'm going to use the 50mm, try and shoot at 1.8 and see if I can isolate that black tree against the background. I don't know how much you can see. There we go. There we go. I like this frame. That little white building construction thing in the back I'm not crazy about, but here I dropped the composition a bit, and I actually do like this summer. I think I like it more. It seems more interesting to me. Now, I'm back in town now, but there's this, call it a park in our area. The problem is that I'm shooting a 400 film that might be a little bit grainy, and we don't have a lot of contrast obviously in lighting today. So it might happen that you lose a lot of detail on 35mm with a grainy film if you're shooting something like trees in winter. We've got all those fine detail of the branches and whatnot, so it might just end up looking like one big blob. But I'm gonna give it a whirl in this rain. It's really bucketing down now. Quickly jump out, take the 50mm. I'm probably gonna shoot at about f5.6, I think. I like this frame. There's something happening there. I think this is a spot I'd like to explore some more, maybe with a finer grain film. This film does impress me. Not crazy about that composition, and also not this one. But I actually do like this little composition. I just turned the camera to the left, saw this, snapped it, and in hindsight I actually do like the framing and the composition and atmosphere of the shot. So I'm in my studio today. I'm busy just doing some client work, some product stuff, and I have about, I think, 4 or 5 frames left on the AL-1 being over there, and I thought, well, why not give it a go in studio with a Kentmere Pan 400. Now I'm going to keep to my exposure of rating it as a 200 film, and with the readings, with the lighting and all that, we're getting f8, and I have to set it at a 60th. Where are we? I have to set it as a 60th because that's the flash sync speed on this camera. And f8, I'm using the 35-105. It's actually got a macro feature as well, because the shot that I'd set up for the client actually is shot with a 90mm macro lens. So I'm going to try and match it more or less, and then I'm using the Godox XT16, which is the trigger for all these lights. And the reason I'm using that one and not the X series, I can't even remember all the model names, the other one, is because this one is brand independent. It basically just, you can see it if you look at a hot shoe, and it only has one little trigger point. Then you know it's something that can work on manual cameras, because it's not speaking to the camera at all. It's merely just a trigger. So let's quickly get a frame. In studio, you probably wouldn't use Kentmere Pan 400. It probably more use like a Ilford Pan F50 or Delta 100. But it actually impresses me with how it holds on to the tonal ranges. But here you can see it compared to the shot taken with a Canon R5. Yeah, quite a difference. But if we do a conversion on the color image, the digital image, now we're comparing black and white to black and white. The digital image definitely has more detail. It is a larger file. The scan is definitely not as big, but it is finer detail, better dynamic range, but it is still an interesting comparison. Again, this is just for fun. I wouldn't consider using a Kentmere 400 to shoot my studio shots. I don't have much time, but I thought before I get into my other work, let me quickly do this self-portrait. So if I get back on this side, I set up the AL-1 over here with the flash trigger, and I have a bottle of wine right at the end of the product table. That's where I'm going to stand. So I'm pre-focusing on the very top of that bottle of wine. Just switch the camera to the self timer setting. There we go. Oh, there's a little blinking lights going on. Let's try to remember to smile. Let's get my face right in line. That was too quick. Let's do another one. Get the bottle out of the way. Turn, smile. Let's remember this was just to illustrate and demonstrate a point. Let's not look at the subject or really the quality of the shot. This will be an insult to those self-portrait artists like Irving Penn and those guys, but yeah. So that is actually the whole roll. Final thoughts. If you can ignore the really finicky battery situation, which if not addressed correctly, turns this camera into a paperweight and a massive irritation. The battery compartment actually makes for a great ergonomic feel, creating a nice grip, which I like. And it makes the camera easy to handle and sits easy in the hand. The buttons are in fairly intuitive places, and that focus assist is really a cool feature. But this is a great option for someone looking to do a bit more than point and shoot. If you don't wish to control every part of the exposure process, this camera is actually great. People often would suggest a fully manual camera as a beginner camera, but I think that's counterintuitive, as it is more difficult to get good results. With this camera, an inexperienced analog photographer can get a very satisfying result, and that by just relying on the automatic features of this camera. If you can, buy one. I'll put some links down below. It's affiliate links, so I might get a bit of money. Other than that, press like, subscribe, comment if you have one of these. If you've got advice, if you need to correct something I've said, please go ahead in the comments below and let's have a discussion about this camera. But like I said, love it. It has its issues. You should get one if you can get one in a good condition.